last several weeks have all been building so that you understand what public relations is, so that you have a working definition, so you could articulate how PR is different from marketing, how it's different from advertising, the functions of it, the process we go through, and that you could actually go through a campaign if you needed to. So today we get to talk about the life of PR, some of the ways you get into the industry, some of the campaigns out there, and just kind of the fun side, because one of my hesitations is that you can sit in a class, you can learn that there's RPI and there's 4 steps and there's strategies and there's tactics and you get all this head knowledge, but you can forget how much fun public relations is, because it is a fun industry. You do incredible things, you're working with people, every day is different, there's challenges, there's opportunities, and you really get to champion things that you believe in, things you care about. So knowing that the last several weeks were a lot of details from who the father of history and public relations is to how you conduct research, I wanted to take today and kind of highlight some of the fun parts. But I also want to tie it into your reading because that's what a good professor is supposed to do, I think. So agency life is something you guys read a little bit about. And a lot of times you're going to hear either agency or in-house. Those are 2 distinctions. When you get into public relations, a lot of people go to agency life to begin with. And what an agency does is it's an organization, it's a company that takes on a lot of different clients and it will do all the PR for them, essentially. My first job was in an agency. So I worked with a company that had been around for about 50 years and they had about 20 different clients already that they worked with. I came in, I learned the systems, and I got to become an account executive. I worked over different clients and I would create campaigns and strategies and reports for them based on who worked with that agency. So an agency typically tends to have the view in the industry of, oh, it's prestigious. It's very corporate feel. There's billing, there's money, because agencies make a lot of money. Usually if people think that public relations has a lot of money in it, which it can, usually they're talking about the agency world, because you bill sometimes by 15-minute increments, by half-hour increments. One agency I worked with billed by the minute, which was crazy. So if you called them and you asked a question, they would bill you. So there's some policies we can talk about, but that's the view of agency PR. And it can be a fantastic start because you start into the industry, and as you should already be seeing, public relations is everywhere. So a lot of times students who are done with Intro to PR say, okay, great, how do I get into the industry? Or what job title is a public relations person under? PR is everywhere. You can find it in so many sectors. But what can happen is you don't know what you like most. You don't know what you love about PR. When I got into the world of public relations, I had no idea that my specific niche would really be digital public relations and brands and how to build relationships. I didn't know that because I hadn't had the chance to do it yet. Agencies give you a chance to work on a lot of different campaigns. Usually you're going to come in and they have different terms. You might be a junior account executive, you might just be staff, but you'll probably work with several different clients at the same time and get an idea, I really like this industry, I really don't like this industry, I love this function of PR, I don't really want to do this function. And that's the value of agency. The reality of agency is there's a high turnover typically. If you are in an agency, a good tenure, like a good amount of time there before you jump, typically 2 to 4 years, you might make your first jump into something else. Because it's a very high pace environment. You're gonna work a lot of hours, you do a lot of things, it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of energy too. So I was just talking with someone who, she had been at the agency, she was with, I think 5 years, and she liked it. She liked it a lot, but she'd been pulling all-nighters. She really loved her clients, but it was a lot of time. And when she was moving, she was ready to jump out of the agency world. Agency is really good if you are wanting to climb the ladder, which some people do. They really are interested in becoming that top person and working with big names, because a lot of big names will go to an agency for an account, or if you're getting into the industry. A lot of times in the middle, you might do something else. You might go and work in-house. So in-house is when you work for an organization. You are their PR person, and that means there's not an agency involved. So here at Biola, we have PR people on staff for Biola. And at Coca-Cola, they have PR people. They might also work with an agency, but there's a PR person in Coca-Cola. There are a lot of PR agencies or PR people who are in-house with missions organizations, with churches, with businesses like, you can think of any number of them. Toyota or Disney or any group, there's usually people who are in-house. And the difference of in-house is quite a lot, actually. One is you don't bill. You're probably going to keep track of your time, but you're not going to send your boss a bill at the end of the day. Why? Yeah.
Because they're the ones who pay.
Yeah, they pay you anyway. You're on salary. You're already paid, so you're not doing that. Which in some ways, to me, when I first started doing billing, it was a little stressful, if I'm going to be honest with you, because you really have to be able to stand behind those numbers and the figures you're sending your clients. So agency is great because it makes you really responsible and aware of how you use your time if you're having to account for it. But I like in-house because I didn't have to worry about that. I got to work on projects, and there's an ebb and flow to the way PR works where it can be confusing when you first enter the industry. What if you're having a conversation with someone and you talk about a client? Do you bill that time? And what if you're having that conversation when the phone rings and you answer and you talk about another client, but then you go back to this client? And what if you have a meeting with 3 people, but you're talking about 2 clients? How do you divide the time? Those are all very answerable questions. There's definite ways to do it. But when you're first getting in the world of PR, your head can kind of spin a little bit because you want to be ethical. Billing is important, obviously, for many reasons, but your name is behind it. You're saying, I'm giving you this service, and I can guarantee you this amount of time went into it. In-house, you don't have that. In-house, you might also end up doing more things because there might be less people on staff. So you're not going to specialize in media relations. You might do media relations and community relations and social media. Now that's more with nonprofit, but in-house, there's usually less people. In an agency, you're going to have more diversity. You're going to have a lot of people maybe on a specific account. You might be the person they go to for, I don't know, the food industry if you're representing clients. But when you're working in-house, you're probably going to do more jobs, but just related to one client. So agency, more clients, more industry experience. In-house, broader experience, but with just one client. Does that kind of ring true with what you guys were reading? Okay, how many of you read about the in-house and agencies? Okay, cool. All right, I like honesty. Honesty's good. So what you really want to understand is where you might fit best. And your reading talks about that, but there's different cultures to it. I loved agency when I first got into it because, one, I liked working with a lot of clients, and there was no way that some of those agencies would have, or groups that I was representing, would have hired me because they only have very few spots and they're in-house. But I got to work with them because I was with an agency they worked with. That was fantastic. I also really didn't mind when I was starting in the industry. I didn't mind long hours or strange work hours. I liked taking business trips. That wasn't a problem for me because I was new to the industry. Now I'm kind of less inclined to really want to do a lot of traveling. Some traveling is fun, but it's not as much my personality. I'm a homebody. So I know on the whole, I like working for one group now more. Agency was fantastic when I started. Some people do not like the multitasking. They do not like the thought of having to go from one client to another client to another. That's just not their personality. They really want to be fully immersed in one client. That's more of an in-house thing then, because if you're going to have trouble jumping from one to the next, you really don't want to be on an agency where they're going to say these are your 3 accounts. So you kind of have to understand your personality type, and you're going to have to understand what helps you achieve your career goals. Agency, again, gives you that experience. It lets you hone in on things you like. It teaches you about billing, and you're going to get experience that you won't get if you do in-house first. In-house, however, gives you more experience. You might stay longer in an in-house position than you would in an agency. The beautiful thing about agency, if you are interested and you're here, we're right between LA and Orange County. We have some of the biggest agencies in the world within about half hour, 45 minutes from here. And a lot of them have internship programs and they have jobs. So Fleischman and Hillard just sent out an announcement that they're taking on interns. And we have Golan and Harris, which is one of the top firms for working moms, which was interesting to me when I got into it. Not a mom yet, but I do want an employer who cares about family. There's also agencies who specialize in sports. There's agencies who are in the financial sector. There's agencies who are in development. There's people who are specializing in crisis. All of them are right around here. So it's really, really great. And some people, I know some of you are interested in international PR. The thing about being in LA is that's a hub. So a lot of them will have an LA office, maybe a Hong Kong office, a London office, maybe one in South America somewhere. It depends where you're trying to get to, where you want to jump. But you find the agency that has offices there, and then see if they have an LA base or an Orange County base, and see about interning with them. It's a great way to get your foot in. Now, in-house side, Again, I just think it's great that we're here in Orange County and LA County because there's a lot of opportunities for you to see what in-house is. There's a lot of people who are looking for people to come on and help them. And that lets you, even if you're not in an agency setting, as an intern possibly, experience what it would be like if you took on that job. If you're not worried about billing, but you're worried about making sure the whole of your client is taken care of. It's not one project, it's continual. Those are a little of the differences. So another question that's often asked is, what's the difference between corporate and nonprofit? Because I worked in an agency, but I worked with mainly nonprofits, not very many corporate. And other people like corporates, but they don't want to do it in an agency setting. So agency versus in-house is kind of a function. Corporate versus nonprofit is more about the organization itself. In corporate, typically you're going to have a very set job description. They're going to give it to you. In nonprofit, you'll probably get a job description as well, but typically you end up wearing a lot of hats. You end up doing a lot of different things because nonprofits have less staff. Corporate has more of a budget. They have more of line items. You get more opportunity to do more things typically. And nonprofits are usually functioning on shoestring budget. They're functioning on donations and charitable giving, and you have to be very careful. There's not a lot of room for PR that takes money. In corporate, you usually have billing of clients or somehow you're keeping track. And in nonprofit, it's more about the vision, about where are we heading, what do we want to accomplish. Now, these are broad brushstroke statements. You're going to find corporations that kind of function more like a nonprofit. You're going to find nonprofits who function like corporations, but these are basics. Because typically, if you're in a corporation or functioning for profit, you do have more revenue coming in, and you do have the ability to do more things with campaigns, to pay for more things. Typically, if you're on a nonprofit, funding is always an issue because you're not for profit, you're not selling a product, you're relying on donations. And a lot of times nonprofits are really interested in the fundraising sector. They're interested in bringing on PR people to help influence values, opinions, beliefs, and behaviors to get funding. So those are some of the differences. My heart is more on the nonprofit side. When I was here, I was helping out an organization with North Korean refugees. I wanted to go and work in the Amazon with a missions organization. I was doing stuff with churches. That's just where I really loved because they don't have a lot of money. They usually can't pay the top level. They can't afford to go and get a Fleischman and Hillard to run a campaign for them. So I was passionate about helping nonprofit organizations get their message out there. At the same time, I've really been impressed with seeing the way corporations work. Now, I've never worked with Disney, but I have several friends who work in Disney, and just hearing them talk and hearing about what they're able to do and how much staff they have, it's just phenomenal. And it would be a fantastic experience. It really would. My heartbeat, again, is more nonprofit. So I know for me, that's where I tend to go. But there's great things about corporate and nonprofit, and some people do both. For some people, it's more agency versus in-house question rather than corporate or nonprofit question. Do you guys have any questions on these structures? Do you guys kind of see how they work? Okay, so when you picture the life of PR, how to get into PR, you're thinking agency or in-house. Sometime down the road, you could get into consulting. And you're thinking corporate versus nonprofit. Those are kind of the sectors you're breaking down into. So then you can look at, well, okay, great, but what kind of jobs do I get? Because at the end of the day, you guys want to get a job. That makes sense. And really, there's so many jobs. I tried to put up some, but you could work for missions organizations. A lot of them have openings. You could work for global PR agencies. We're right here. You could do corporate. Social media managers usually come out of public relations, although you can come from marketing or other areas, but PR is really suited to knowing how to work with social media. Employee relations specialists could be PR people. Media relations, you can go into events, you can do community relations. This list could go on and on and on. Hopefully you're seeing that the function of public relations, the ability to manage that communication, can cross so many different types of job descriptions. There are no end to it, which is why US News was talking about PR being one of the best careers to go into between now and 2020. With the economy thriving, with people saying, how do we get our message out there? How do we communicate our vision and our values to the public that seems so disconnected? PR steps into that. And we're asking how to do that in more ways than ever before. How do we do it with events? How do we do it with the media? How do we do it with employees? How do we do it with social media? How do we do it on email? How do we do it in written form? How do we do it in person? These questions are ones that PR people are ready to answer. This is our specialty. Our specialty is coming in there and helping bridge that communication gap. You are supposed to be an expert in that when you're in the field of PR. So organizations want to bring you in because they see that they have those gaps and they want you to fill it. Some of the things, and I showed this the first day of class, but I want to remind you where students from this program are heading. We've had students do internships or get positions with all of these organizations, and these are just 6, but there's more. But the idea is it's diverse. For example, my accent's really awful. I've been working on Korean, not Spanish. Pantaleon is the subsect of Lionsgate, but it specializes in the Hispanic community. So one of our PR students is working for them right now. She is all about the film industry. She's about the red carpet and the VIPs and how to connect those. And that is her heartbeat, and she's excellent at it. And she's working in the industry now because she knew that's what she wanted. We've had others who, for example, LA Galaxy. We also just had a student last week get a position with the Dodgers. They're about being able to be ambassadors for things they love. They love soccer, they love baseball, they want to work in it, they want to share that enthusiasm. World Vision. We had a student there last summer who was working in their media relations because she really wanted to understand and help people who didn't have a voice. She wanted to address concerns that were a global nature that weren't being seen. So she worked with World Vision. And we could go on and on. But the point is, these people identified what they like, they identified what they're passionate about, and they melded that with public relations. That's what makes it powerful. It's really easy to make PR abstract. It's really easy to say, okay, it's about influencing values, opinions, beliefs, and behaviors. That's great. It's about using an RPI, fantastic. But there's not that heart behind it. And you have to have heart to make it in public relations. You have to care about what you're doing. So if you want to make it in public relations, if you're finding yourself even the least bit interested, think about how much more interested you would be if you could do it for the thing you love most, or at least one of the things you love most. Like, what would you do if you could come along your favorite organization and help them? That's where PR comes alive. That's where it's exciting. And that's what these people are doing. They're finding, what do I care about and how do I become the best at it? How do I get the training I need? How do I get the experience? And how do I do it every day? For me, I love public relations because I honestly believe it changes lives. I believe that what I do with organizations helps people in very tangible ways. Now, sometimes I'm more removed than the people on the front lines getting to do it, but I know the power of public relations. And I love waking up and saying, this is what I get to do. And now that I'm teaching as well about PR, I honestly believe that you can change the world through public relations. You can change the course of cultures and societies and nations through the influencing of values, opinions, beliefs, and behaviors. There's a very real connection there. And honestly, if Christians aren't stepping in that gap, other people are going to be stepping in that gap, right? Somebody is going to be filling in that, what do we do with our values, opinions, beliefs, and behaviors? Someone's going to speak into that. So I can't think of anything better than to invest in people with sound ethics, with strong moral conviction, and people who love people to want to do that. People who genuinely care about the good of society, the good of culture, to want to do public relations, because you're getting to do what you love, change the course of the world while you're doing it. And I know you may think I'm overestimating the reach of PR. I think it's pretty powerful. So how do you get there? What are these next steps? What do you need to do? Because what your reading kind of covered was the broad base of the industry. First of all, you need to own your education. I can't stress that enough. I have just been here, this is my 4th semester teaching here full time, and I can tell you there is a difference between students who own their education and people who come to class and do what's expected. There is the I've met the requirement versus the this matters. I want to make it worth something. So own your education. You can only learn so much from me sitting here and talking. The rest is going to be on you to actually apply it, to integrate it, to memorize it, to understand it. Education is not something I can give away. It's not something that anyone can give you. It's something you really have to work hard for. And this is your opportunity to become the best of the best, to get that background. And you want to specialize. There's a lot about being a generalist, and there's the general principles of PR. You need to learn them, and you're going to be going through PR classes. But if you want to get into industry, for example, the person who went into the entertainment industry with the subsect of Lionsgate, she knew what she wanted to do, and she pursued it wholeheartedly because entertainment's hard to get into. It is rigorous. You have to go after hard internships. You have to deal with a lot of stuff as you're going there, but she knew that's what she wanted. So she specialized, and everything she did prepared her for those steps. The same is true if you're going into humanitarian, if you're going to an event. Whatever you're wanting to do, you need to specialize. You need to understand that's where I'm headed, and my eye is on the prize. I'm going to go there, and I'm going to get the skill set that I need. You want to build your portfolio experience. So from here on out, this is your entry-level class. I'm hoping a lot of you, okay, let's be real. I'm hoping all of you, but I want to be more realistic. I'm hoping a lot of you will fall in love with PR because I think it's fantastic. I think it's amazing. But you need to know what you're building your portfolio towards. So this class is a start. If you choose to go through the rest of the PR program, you're going to be in other classes that give you opportunities to select clients, to work with different organizations, to run campaigns. You're going to do more and more. And your portfolio should reflect what you're hoping to get into. Every time you get an opportunity to pick a client, to work with an organization, to interview someone for a project, it should relate to where you want to head, because those are networks, those are connections, and those are experience pieces that are equipping you for your job. The worst thing you can do is just kind of flounder and be like, sure, I don't care, we'll do whatever. Because at the end, your portfolio will be whatever then. And people will look at it and say, well, okay, tell me how you're ready for this internship or this position. And you want to be able to answer that with your experience. Internships are huge. If you are in the journalism PR program, then you have to do an internship, but the students who tend to succeed or at least get jobs faster do more than the required. A student who I knew, there were several who graduated in a December graduating class. She had done 5 internships and she had her job within 3 weeks. And that's because of her internships. She didn't have to do 5, but she did do 5, and that was what got her the connections. And finally, networking. Public relations is about people, and it's ultimately about relationships. You don't want to view people as functions. You don't want to view them as, okay, I'm going to make friends with you because I may need you someday. That's kind of clouded judgment right there, right? But we do like people in public relations. You should be fascinated and enjoy people, and those connections are important. You should go to events where you're meeting the top people around the county. So if you are in PR and you see yourself heading this way, consider going to some of those networking events with OCPRSA or LAPRSA. They hold luncheons and dinners and they invite students to them all the time. Rarely do students go, but usually when they do, they make a really sound impression. And people say, well, here's my business card, call me if you're interested, or if you ever need an internship, or if you want to talk. They're ready and willing to interact with you. You just have to make that connection. And you want to make a good impression when you do. So those are the steps to getting you from intro to PR to a job in the industry, and a specialized industry, one that you like. Because yes, I want you in PR, but what does that mean? That means figuring out which subsect you're interested in, figuring out where you come alive, figuring out what you want to do for the rest of your life, not just the general public relations. Any questions on this or steps? Doing okay? All right, so we're going to look at some campaigns today. The first one, we're going to talk about some other ways to get connected first. Biola PR SSA is a great connection if this has caught your attention. I talked about it the first day, but I want to remind you, they have over 50 members now, which is great because when we started, I said they had 40, so we've grown by 10. That's great. And they do things. They do opportunities for you to get connected. Connections and training are a huge part of the Public Relations Student Society of America. And it's often through these connections that a lot of students get their first or second or third internship or job opportunities. And then 6th Street PR is our on-campus student-run PR agency. So when I said get experience, specialize, you can get involved in the student-run PR agency. You have to start out as staff because we want you to know what 6th Street is to kind of get the culture. But you can work your way up. You can become an account executive and run a campaign. You can be a senior account executive and help 2 account executives run their campaigns. You get management experience, you work with staff, it's leadership experience, and you work with clients. We've done some really cool things. And right now we're in a transition to where I think our most pivotal semester yet will be next semester, when we're fully launching into a new phase for 6th Street, which is huge. So consider getting involved, because sometimes it's easy to say, oh, that's on-campus experience. No, these are real-world clients. You're doing a real campaign, and it's on you to pitch. I am back in the background because obviously I care how it all turns out, but it's you making the contact with the client. It's you presenting to them. It's you taking the meetings. It's you bringing in an RPI and pitching the presentation. Last semester, there was one student, and she had to pitch to an entire board of directors. And she had to do it virtually, which was even harder if you've ever tried to pitch virtually. We've had people come on campus and bring several staff members and grill our students with, how is this going to work? How's this going to work? And they hold their own. They do extremely well. So this is a really neat opportunity. Here's an ad. I know some of you, I think at least one of you, covered it in your paper. But Dove, they did a campaign. Now, Dove is a beauty product line, but they did Real Beauty. And they've actually had multiple versions of this campaign because it's grown. And their concept was to challenge what culture says beauty is. So they did things like this: oversized or outstanding, gray or gorgeous, because it was trying to say, why are you categorizing it like this when it could be categorized like this? And they actually moved from doing just women to also doing one with girls, because they found that self-esteem among, I think, 12 to 15-year-olds was at an all-time low. And so they wanted to do a campaign to combat this. They had ads, they had television advertisements, they had billboards, they had flyers, they had an online web presence. It was a unified presentation. And again, it wasn't about buying Dove's product, though it does help. I cared about Dove more because I was like, wow, you care about people. But this was public relations. This was saying we recognize something going on in culture around beauty, and we are a beauty organization. That's our industry. So we should have a voice in this. As a corporately responsible citizen, we want to speak into what beauty is and what that means for a woman's existence and how she views herself and how the world views her because of this. So it's actually a really interesting one. If you ever Google it, it's fascinating. Some of the ads, I'm like, okay, I don't know if you needed to show that. But it's interesting. The other part, and because as you progress in public relations, you want to think about both sides, this got a lot of attention, and I think it was a fantastic campaign. Some of the things that left out, though, were people with disabilities. It never had someone in a wheelchair or someone missing a limb. So what are we saying about beauty in that context? And another question was, why are we still asking people to evaluate? Because one of the things with the beauty industry, one of the conversations in the public relations spectrum is, how are we categorizing people and why? Why is there this competition? So even at this, it's asking you to evaluate someone else. Why can't they be great because of who they are without you determining whether they're great? So an interesting philosophical premise to their public relations campaign. How many of you saw the beauty campaign? Okay, cool. This is another fun one that you guys should be aware of. In, I think it was 2007, President Bush pardoned a turkey. And that turkey got to live out its life at Disneyland. Was that a PR stunt? Yeah, you better believe that's a PR stunt, to get a turkey from the White House to Disneyland. So it was Thanksgiving Dreams Do Come True, and they had the turkey riding in the parade, and they flew him all the way from Washington, D.C., so they had to be very careful, because as a PR person, the last thing you want is your turkey to die on its way over. So they have the pardoning over here, and they, for a while, had it so you could go visit the turkey while they were at Disneyland. That's huge. It's dreams come true. It's around a holiday. It's people excited. And to think that they could get that to happen, that was public relations. That was getting people excited. That's creative. It's reminding people what Disneyland is about. How many of you have seen athletes, professional athletes, out in the community doing things like reading programs or things like that, yeah? Public relations efforts. Those are designed to show that there's more to a sports organization. There's more to a sports team than just winning, than just a sport, that it's a lifestyle, and it's a lifestyle that gives back. So NBA Cares is an entire section, and you can find it for any professional organization, athletes, but they are going to highlight what teams are doing to give back to the community. And sometimes it is on television ads. Sometimes it's shopping with kids at the holidays. Like they will get groups of kids who are maybe homeless, and they get to be with their favorite athlete and go Christmas shopping for their family. Things like that, that makes me so excited. If you've ever gotten to see one of those things in action, it's huge. Public relations does a lot to give back to the community, and it's in every sector. It's public relations people who remind organizations about the public. We do a lot of talking about helping the organization get their message out. PR is also about reminding the organization about the public. So it's both ways. You go back to the organization and say, you know, our mission is this, our vision is this. Here's one way we can continue to do it. if we are about people who are holistically giving back to a community, if we're about strong character, then why not do something in the local school system with the kids? Why not do something with a homeless program? Why not do X? And those are all concepts that come out of public relations professionals. Yes, they're specialists in their industry. They better know all of the stats and all of the details and everything that goes into being in the MBA, but they also have to be creative. They also have to love people. They also have to have the good of culture in mind to come up with programs like this. So here's another version. It's political public relations. And this was a campaign that got a lot of national attention. It was called Check It Right, You Ain't White. And it's because there was a census in 2010 taken, and a lot of the Arab population was just checking that they were white, not that they were Arab, which would mean that they were less represented when the census came in, and would also impact different things that would fall out of that with politics, with different economic breakdowns, all sorts of things. So there was a campaign started to say, you should be proud of your identity. Don't be afraid of checking the box saying you're Arab. And there were people who would say, you know what, you could have discrimination happen if you did it. You could have X happen. Or this guy who's sharing here says that from the time he was in high school, he was either made fun of or people would just say, no, you're white. You're just white, and that's the end of it. They wouldn't even let him talk about his identity. So either he's getting insulted or he's getting discounted, but he couldn't claim his cultural identity. And that is an issue that impacts politics. It's an issue that impacts so many things, but it came to life in this public relations campaign. And they did so many different endeavors trying to get the word out, trying to have people who were from the Arab community stand up and saying, I'm voting, and I'm happy to put my name down that I am of this nationality. I'm happy to say this is my heritage. I'm happy to say this is my culture, and I want to stand with other people. And it really brought a lot of life to that community here in Orange County. And they did really get a strong result because people could resonate with that message. They had shared experiences. And that's one of the things you can do in public relations. You're working with people. And a lot of times, we share experiences. We can relate to what someone's going through. And you can identify those things and help build that communication. This was not just an individual problem. This was a problem with the community. And it was a problem, big picture, of people who would discriminate. And it was also a problem at the minute level of people who had been hurt and didn't want to stand out any longer. So they just didn't want to check the box. I thought it was a fantastic campaign. So someone asked last week about some of the campaigns I've done. I'll talk with you about some of them. God Built, Steve Farrar, was one of mine, and he's an author. He came out with a book called God Built, and so my specialization in the industry, the agency I was with, was a radio agency, Christian radio. And so we created a radio program for him, and there were, I think, 10 short features and 1 half-hour length. And I worked with radio stations around the country to try to say, you know, this is a powerful message. People need to understand that to be a man, you can't just do it on your own. You need to be built. God built. That was always our thing. You always say built and then God built. I'm not sure why we came up with that as our tagline, but we did. And we got a number of stations to talk about this. Now, here's the difference. I wasn't asking them to sell the book. I wasn't asking them to even air advertisements. I was asking them to let Steve share his message. And that's what the power was. I knew his story resonated with people. I knew his message was what they needed to hear. So I was able to really get behind this, even being female. Family Talk. Anyone know what Family Talk is? Anyone know who James Dobson is? Okay. So James Dobson left Focus on the Family, and he started a new ministry called Family Talk. And he worked with our agency to help start that. So we were in conversations from what are ideas for names and what's a logo look like and how do we launch a website and all of these things. And it was really a privilege to be part of that because he is a legacy in Christian culture. And there was a lot coming into that project. Remember when I said if you work with an agency, you get to be part of things that you would never get to otherwise. I would never have gotten to be part of that project had I been on my own. They wouldn't have come to me and said, what are your thoughts? But because I was part of an agency that was so well respected and had worked with Focus on the Family years ago, I was able to be part of that. Apologetics.com is a group of apologists. I know, tricky. And they mainly have a radio program, but they've been branching out, they've been growing. So for a while, I was consulting with them on ways to do donor development, on ways we could improve things, and I also got to be part of their staff because I was in apologetics at the time. But for me, that was a mixing of two loves of mine, apologetics and public relations. Because it doesn't matter how sound your apologetics argument is, if you can't get anyone to listen to you anyway, it's kind of useless. So you needed to find that bridge. The Chuck Colson Center for Worldview. Anyone know who Chuck Colson is? Okay, a few of you. Chuck Colson, he really big person, worked in the White House, was part of the Watergate scandal, all sorts of things. He started Prison Fellowship, Angel Tree Ministries. Well, he had a legacy project he wanted to leave. His legacy project was the Colson Center for the Christian Worldview. And it actually was really hard to get him to even want to have his name on that. That wasn't something he was about. He was more about the Christian worldview, because he believes that it's the worldview that dictates what happens. So we can be in the prisons, but unless we can change the worldview, people are just going to go back to prison. They're just going to continue in that lifestyle. So I was able, he was one of my accounts that I had when they were launching this, which was super fun. And we got to talk about how do you break the news to the industry? Because some of the questions is, well, is he more committed now to this than he is to his other projects, to his other ministries? So how do you bridge that as a public relations person? How do you explain a legacy project while explaining, no, he still is committed, but this is where his focus is now? And it was fantastic. He actually passed away, I believe it was last year, which was really tragic. He's one of my personal heroes, but because of this and because of being in the agency, I got the chance to meet him and to work on some huge projects. Sharing the Victory is out of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. They were another one of the clients I worked with. And one of their big questions was, how in the world do we get people to know we have a radio program? And how do we get names? Because in nonprofit world, names are gold, because they're people you can interact with, they're people you can try to get to turn into donors. So hypothetically, if they came to you and said, how do we make that happen? What do you think you might say? Silence doesn't work in the agency world. We suggested a contest. We said a contest is a really great thing. So what could we give people? And we were talking with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. What do you think they suggested? Super Bowl tickets, which was the biggest contest I've ever been part of. So suddenly, I go from how do we get people to want a radio program to how in the world do we run a Super Bowl contest? Because that's a big deal. So you have to get permission to use certain names. You have to create a legal contract for how to participate. You have to figure out how people are entering. You have to figure out the time frames. It was pretty phenomenal. There were a lot of bumps with it. One of them, we won't even go into them all, but there were bumps. So if you ever run a contest, first of all, find out all of the legalities, and then make sure that you for sure have the contest winner's prize in hand when you give it away. Otherwise, you know, there's some problems. AP Driving. That was another organization I did consulting with, and they are a group that does driving school. In Arizona, we didn't have to take driving school, but apparently it's pretty big out here, and you have to in California. So it's an industry, is doing the student driving. And I got to work with employee training because you have a lot of people working with teenagers. So you have to really figure out what kind of policies do you have in place? And how do you show the world that those policies are in place? Because people are entrusting you with their child, which is their most precious possession. Why should they trust you? So how do you communicate that? What do you put on the website? What kind of training? And we also did things like AdWord campaigns, and we did community outreach. So those are kind of this smattering of what I did. It's interesting because as I try to encapsulate what I do, I look back and I told you, have a focused portfolio. This doesn't seem too focused to me. But what you need to find is your story. And my story in here is branding and relationship. My story is how does an organization build relationships with the people it cares about. That's what my specialization is. I usually focus on the digital world within that. But for me, Steve and Godbuilt, I needed relationships with those station managers. I needed them to understand how important this was for their listeners and how Steve could meet that need. For Family Talk, it's how in the world do you have someone who's had a legacy with focus on the family, start a new organization? How do you build new relationships based on that? Apologetics.com, same thing. How do you get relationships with listeners? How do you make them care about the ministry? Colson Center, same thing. Sharing the Victory, same thing. AP Driving, same thing. So when I'm saying do something specific, I'm not saying do the same thing over and over and over again. I'm saying find what you love. I love relationships. I love how to form those. I love that organizations can actually care about the people they interact with. And I love the challenge of figuring out how to help people understand that an organization cares, because that's hard. You can't always bridge that connection. So briefly, anyone want to give like the 30-second elevator speech of the campaign you looked at for your project today? Yeah, cool.
Okay, so I found a really interesting campaign that Mini Cooper did. And there was this whole big issue because there was a glitch in one of their server systems that had sent spam emails to all their clients. And some people received like hundreds of emails at a time. And everyone was just really outraged about it and just irritated, really. So instead of just going the regular way and sending people letters, apologizing, saying it's a server error, what they did is they mailed all their customers this little package, and in it was a letter, a chocolate rose, a roll of duct tape, and a can of spam. And the letter said, sorry about the server error. There's no better way to apologize than flowers and chocolate, so we combine the two with the chocolate rose. If that isn't enough, we hope the duct tape will fix the problem. And if you're ever feeling stressed or annoyed with us again, here's the can of spam that you can squeeze, something like that. And it's just a really funny, lighthearted, way to fix the problem. And the response was really positive, and people were like, oh, that's hilarious. They took their time, they put effort into their apology, and it was a great campaign.
It's genius. Yeah. That's so good. I like that. Anyone else? Okay, everyone wrote a paper, so come on.
I did mine on the Starbucks brand transformation a couple years ago. It was really fascinating. They aligned it with their 40th anniversary, and so when 2008 hit, they were dealing with the economic crisis, and it was like 2 years in a row of their lowest earnings. So they needed to do a revamp, and so it was perfect with their 40th anniversary, and they have the new logo. They did more community outreach programs. Howard Schultz, the CEO, wrote a book that released and became a #1 bestseller in the New York Times, USA Today, and then Barnes & Noble. And it was just incredible, the stuff that they did. It completely changed the brand, and there were increases in all their 3 objectives, which were building community, showing growth, and then I think it was something about being relational with the customers, and they had increases in all of them. It was pretty great.
That's fantastic. Yeah, Nick.
I did one on USA Swimming's program, Make a Splash. USA Swimming is the head corporate thing for all competition for swimming in America, and they had a program that tried to reinforce a positive perception on swimming, and they did all this research on drownings, and they're like, hey, how can we combat this? So they pulled a big name, Colin Jones, who's an Olympian, and they had him go around with Make a Splash staff. And they did swimming lessons and got community centers on board, and they just had this whole, they've reached over 1,000 kids and just saved a lot of lives. So.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
I did Skinny Cow ice cream brand, the Perfect Cup campaign. And so basically what they did was they set up a day for women to have a day out, and during that time they would be able to taste the new ice cream flavors that were in cups, and they were launching that product at the time. And they also found out that 8 out of 10 women are wearing the wrong bra size. So they had free bra fittings for everyone and gave everybody who came there a new bra. So it was just a fun day out with girlfriends and just to hang out, and they got a ton of positive responses from that.
It's really a unique approach. That's interesting. Yeah.
Coca-Cola had an America's Your Park campaign. It was their 3rd year doing it this past year, and it's a contest where people would vote for their favorite parks, and they would give grants to the parks to rebuild or revamp their thing. This past year was a small town in Alabama that won, and they use social media as their basis. You would vote through a Facebook app that it would go to vote, and then if you checked in through Foursquare at the park, you got 100 votes instead. So
wow.
I really encourage people to actually go to the park and be active in it, and it was just a part of their Live Positively initiative, which is just encouraging healthy living and active and like being fitness and stuff. It was really cool.
It's fantastic. Hoping all of you are starting to get a bigger picture of what public relations is then. We've just talked about some really big brands, big organizations. But what PR is doing in those is for the good of relationships, for the good of people, for the good of the company, yes, but it's different than just the product or the bottom line. It's creative, it's engaging people where they're at, and it's building a stronger community, whether that is by partnering with things like parks, whether it is engaging women with new ice cream flavors, whether it's launching a new brand, whether it's doing an apology, whether it's gaining awareness. All of those things relate back to the organization and communication. But if all you know about public relations is that it's the management function of communications between an organization and the publics, that sounds so boring. Public relations is not boring. Good public relations is the most creative thing you're going to see because it engages people past their intellect into their heart to motivate them to do something, to motivate them to care. That's hard work, so rewarding, and so competitive. So that's why you get all of this foundation. That's why you go through these classes, because to get to the big leagues, to get to where you're running campaigns like this, you need your background knowledge. You need to understand where we've come from as an industry. You need to understand the tools available to you. You need to understand the processes, because once that's there, you can be creative. If you try to be creative but you don't understand how to do public relations in the first place, it just kind of becomes a mess because it's very complicated. You're dealing with people, you're dealing with ideas, you're dealing with communication processes, you're dealing with management and business functions. But if you understand that, it's fun, it's engaging, it's, I think, exhilarating because you're doing something that's different. But you also have to have that background. So some people say, well, why would I go to school for public relations? Why not just do public relations? It's because of all the information you need to get there to do it well. The idea of sending an apology letter with Spam and a chocolate rose, very creative, but only works if you understand how an organization needs to apologize in a crisis. That was genius. And as you advance in studying public relations, you'll learn about organizations and the steps you go through in a crisis and how that hit it head on. When you're rebranding, you really need to be able to lock that in with something bigger. Connecting it with a 40th anniversary is genius. Some people would say, well, don't do it at the same time because you might mix people up. But if you understand how people think and if you understand the life cycle of an organization, fantastic combination. There's so much behind how you select what you're going to do that is informed by your education, which was the first point I had. To go far in public relations, own your education. Be willing to work hard because it pays off. It makes you a better professional. And in this industry, there's a lot of competition. It is a booming industry with a lot of people going into it, but there's very few campaigns that get the highlights of what we're talking about. And that's because there's only so many times that you get a shot at it. And when your chance comes, you want to be informed. You want to be ready. You want to have that expertise.
Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Visit biola.edu to find out how Biola could make a difference in your life.